Hi guys, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we're continuing our Alternate Future of North America series. And well, let's get into it. And the first thing that happens is a Floridian invasion of Missouri, which is the annexation. Why did they annex Missouri? Because, well, they can't. Well, it's not Florida anymore. It's actually the Confederate States, but it was created by the rebellions. Realistically, it's still the Florida Empire, but under new name. So the Confederates re-annexed Missouri. Yes, they want Missouri back. So bad. Well, they're in a very powerful situation. And with this annexation, they've greatly increased their strength to the north. And now the Western Union decides to copy their ideas. Wait, they're still landlocked. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I didn't realize I did that in the peace treaty. Well, if they really want a coast, they can go do more. Well, they probably will have a coast eventually if they keep expanding south. And well, they quickly launched their annexation of Iowa. And well, Iowa surrenders pretty fast. Why? Because, well, they have nothing to do. And well, as they expand south, they become stronger. The only coast they have is Hudson Bay. That's not a very good coast to have. And well, Quebec finally is going to be denationalized. Yes, nationalist Quebec is about to fall. With, well, Northern Pact, which has the territories, whatever, the Northern Republic, I guess, Great Northern Republic, whatever I called it. The Maritime Republic, Newfoundland and Labrador, and they have New England and Ontario. So let's see them invade Quebec. I guess Quebec's done with those nationalistic ideas. But not yet. And well, the nation that leads this invasion is none other than Ontario, the strongest nation in this pact. And they quickly start moving in towards Quebec's major cities. And they launch an invasion over here to secure the region. With an invasion in the north. Not very to do much, but distract. And well, the invasions of the south. They're to create a naval blockade. So now they have Quebec blocked. And well, in the south, we see the invasion by New England. With Quebec pushing Ontario back from its major cities and pushing one of the distraction fronts back. And then another. And then another. With them testing their luck. With an invasion to occupy the Churchill River, which caused a crisis in the first episode of this series. And then they come out from here. They've quickly captured a lot of it. And then after this, they managed to capture that whole area. And well, they managed to start a lot more invasions. They also try invading here, which goes to success in northern New England around Maine area. With Ontario launching an offensive along the coast and turning across the border to create a full front line, which they've finally done. They advance a bit in the south, but a counter-offensive breaks out here, and now they invade to take back some of their former territory, which they quickly move in to push back, meaning the naval blockade got ruined. But it wasn't necessarily a surprise, knowing the geography and stuff. Although, in the importance of these lands, with them starting to occupy the whole place. But at this point, they manage to get held back, and an offensive gets launched by the Maritime Republic, and they quickly take over most of the Gaspé Peninsula. And they slowly push Quebec back in the New England Republic and managing to hold them from managing to march to the coast again. But they manage to push back here a bit, but they still manage to hold a blockade. So then they decide to see if they can get through, which they start an invasion of the New Brunswick part of the Maritime Republic, taking a big chunk of it, but not enough, with Ontario continuing its northern offensive, which it gets cold, and this causes a lot of logistical problems due to not much supply getting there. They're forced to withdraw for most of this advance. But due to this, Quebec's starting to move forces to hold that front there. They don't leave enough forces to hold on to all their occupied lands in Labrador. And so they quickly get pushed back. Well, in the southern part. And well, they quickly take all of this land and launch a spearhead to here, which they use to launch an invasion. And they manage to overwhelm the defensive forces and encircle a group of them, leading to their fall. And then the fall of this island. And the managing to push here, Ontario managing to push its offensive. They also started an offensive again in the north, with none of it attempting a small attack. Though they don't have much of the capabilities to do it. They manage to launch a few offensives. No, they only take the lands they can reliably supply to. And while an offensive is launched in the Maritime Republic and the New England Republic, both quickly expel Quebec's forces, and them both advancing, with a small encirclement happening as most forces that was there managed to get away. And while New Brunswick's forces start moving down the coast, with Ontario starting to push into Montreal, with the managing to launch an encirclement, which leads to a siege, which leads to the fall of those lands. And with Quebec having to move forces, an offensive takes place here, quickly taking back those lands and then quickly kicking them fully out. And with this, they launch an offensive here to connect with the Nunavut forces, with them holding quite a bit of land, with Ontario's forces launching the northern offensive, with the northern offensive becoming more strong, and they use this to move south, with them launching a offensive hoping to be able to connect to the Ontario forces. And with this, they use this to, Ontario uses that to widen their front, with Nunavut extending, not worrying about much, as another line connects up, supply line. And during this, push into Quebec City begins, with Quebec City falling, and then nationalist Quebec falling at the same time, and all of Quebec now occupied. Now for the peace treaty. Peace treaty, with Nunavut annexing some lands in the north. Newfoundland and Labrador gained some lands in the north and some border territories. And well, the Maritime Republic manages to gain Gaspé, while Newfoundland and Labrador gained that island. And they annexed northern parts of New York and parts of southern Quebec, with Ontario annexing parts up the St. Lawrence and parts over here, some in the north. And well, then Quebec is occupied by the Northern Defense Pact. And well, now we have the Great Lake nations decide to partition Well, Indiana. But they don't bring in their puppet in Wisconsin because, well, there's no point because they'll get nothing out of it. And now, I guess, Illinois' plan must be to encircle Chicago. Try to get back in the future. With them crossing the border, Illinois' forces and the forces from Michigan quickly capture the coast and start an offensive from the north, with both sides' forces meeting up. And well, Illinois quickly gets cut in half. And well, they collapse. So let's see the peace treaty. But before you look into that, we'll look into the Partition of Ohio. And well, New York joins in on this part with a quick invasion by them leading to this, with New York launching an invasion across the border from their holdings in Pennsylvania. And well, quickly Michigan moves in like this and then that, quickly capturing this and then that. And in this time, they managed to only capture that little land. And well, let's see both of these peace treaties annexed by Illinois, with the northern part by Michigan. Michigan extends their expansion there along the coast. And then a puppet of Ohio is created, with New York gaining back lands it used to have. So pretty much a lot. And well, now for the last part of today's video, let's go back to Panama. Panama decides to invade Nicaragua. Why do they do this? Well, to take the land and all of it. Yeah, so basically it's a war of annexation. As they declare war and quickly march in. And well, they move up here and over here. Well, they quickly make an advance over here. And well, they push up. And quickly they end up surrendering with the Panamanian annexation of Nicaragua. And well, they also annex a few more lands in this area. And well, that's all. And well, that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Why should you subscribe? So you can get to 3,500 subscribers by September 30th. Bye, guys. Please subscribe.